Hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. This is Brandon from freestatecolorado.com with your weekly news roundup for September 14th, 2024. Nearly every week, I take a look at some headlines, news stories, and articles from across our great state. As always, the links can be found at freestatecolorado.com, as well as some original articles and interviews I've done. Since the last weekly roundup, I've talked to quite a few people. Rachel Gable, who's an agriculture reporter here in Colorado, talking about this war on meat, this war on Colorado ranchers and agriculture, and this absolutely terrible slaughterhouse ban that some animal rights extremists are pushing in Denver this year. It has to be defeated. I'll talk a little bit about that this week. John Caldera, interview with him, president of the Independence Institute, definitely a well known Colorado personality. I asked him the question, what happened to Colorado? You definitely want to check that one out. The most viral video I've ever done. Also talked to Patrick Neville, former House Minority Leader on the Republican side there. He's down in Castle Rock and talking about this proposed tax increase. The city, the town government's really holding public safety hostage. It's an important story because it's not just Castle Rock they try and do these things, it's all over. So check that out. Also put together a little article with some talking points for the 2024 election, for activists, for volunteers, for voters, and for candidates as well, because I took a look at the polls for this last year. Affordability, crime, of course, those are some of the biggest issues, but I wanted to provide some information for people running for office so they know what to talk about and don't get caught in stuff that people might not necessarily care to hear. I also talked to Candace Stutzream on the dangers of Proposition 131. That's this ballot initiative you might be seeing commercials for already to institute a all-candidate open primary and ranked choice voting in the general. It's interesting stuff. I don't think it's a good idea. Check that video out to find out why. And then I also talked to Natalie Menton, of course, a regular guest at Free State, Colorado. She is a rock star running for county commissioner this year out in Jefferson County. But we did this video about ending food taxes in Colorado. I'm trying to do the same up here in Greeley, and she did it in Lakewood. Really good stuff. She has a really a good plan to get rid of food taxes. And then I did talk to Ryan Gonzalez. He's talked about the Taxpayer's Bill of Rights, how important it is to save and preserve Colorado's liberty and freedom and our prosperity, but also strengthening the Taxpayer's Bill of Rights to continue to make Colorado a free state. Ryan's running for state house this year in House District 50. So check those out. But let's take a look at the news, see what we got in the headlines this week. First story I'd like to talk about is from Denverite.com. Denver eviction cases are up 80% compared to pre-pandemic. This is from September 12th, 2024. Despite record amounts of city money going to eviction prevention, the city is on track to break the local record for cases. Now, I bring this article up because there's been a coordinated effort by our legislature and some anti property activists, for lack of a better word, who are really going after landlords, they're going after property owners, and they use this information to really try and increase government control over the housing market. Now, I think there's better free market solutions to helping alleviate this eviction issue, but it's also a sign of the times of this poor economic conditions that Denver's having, Colorado's having. Really, people across the country are in a tough spot right now. I mean, people are getting evicted like crazy. People can't afford their groceries, can't afford their bills. I think that's really the crux of the story, not necessarily that it's these greedy landlords, right? The number of eviction cases going to court in Denver has skyrocketed above pre pandemic norms, a trend that started in 2023. The numbers are appalling, said attorney Zach Newman, head of the Community Economic Defense Project, a legal group representing tenants facing eviction statewide. It's really bad. This year, landlords have filed about 11,000 eviction cases in Denver County Court, according to court data. Despite record amounts of city money going to eviction prevention, the city is on track to break the record number of cases set last year. Wow. So there you go. This is up to close to 3,500 individuals who faced housing insecurity since many rentals are home to multiple people. So, rising rents, bad economic conditions, this is really a lot of the problem that we're experiencing here. So, don't believe some of these anti-property activists when they go down to the state legislature next year and really say that we need more government control of housing. That's not the solution. We see how this fails. What we need to do is kind of open up the market a little bit and improve the economic conditions. So, interesting article there. Definitely a sign of the times in Colorado and Denver, unfortunately. But let's move on. From the Great Complete Colorado, page 2. Definitely a website you should be checking out every day. This is from Sherry Pife. High profile chefs join opposition to meat processing ban on Denver's November ballot from September 9th, 2024. So, wanted to bring this up here. Several high profile Denver chefs have joined forces with a group who work closely with the Colorado livestock industry to oppose an anti agriculture initiative that will go before Denver voters in November. La Diabla Pozole y Mezcal chef Jose Avilla and El Posto chef Andre Friesi are teaming up with President and CEO of the National Western Stock Show and Complex, Paul Andrews, operations manager, employee owner of Superior Farms, Isabel Batista, president of the Colorado Livestock Association, Kenny Rogers, along with other Superior Farms employee owners to oppose a citizen initiated measure to ban meat processing facilities within the city limits of Denver. So it is bad news for sure. This is really bad stuff going on down there. So it's really good to see that these chefs are teaming up with the stock show, teaming up with other people, especially this group, this people who own and work at Superior Farms to push back against this ban. It's absolutely ridiculous. It makes no sense at all. There's pretty widespread opposition to it. So if you know anybody in Denver, if you're a Denver, you're voter yourself, please consider voting no on this ban on slaughterhouses. All right, let's move on. So wanted to bring this one up here, of course, because the fires this year in Colorado were very odd. They all happened within a few days of each other along the I-25 corridor. And, there was a lot of talk of who caused them, where did it come from? And so now we're getting some answers. This is from apnews.com. A Colorado man is charged with arson in a wildfire that destroyed 29 homes. This is from September 11th, 2024. Loveland, Colorado. A Colorado man was charged with arson after an investigation into a wildfire this summer that destroyed 29 homes and caused more than $30 million in property damage, authorities said Wednesday. Jason Alexander Hobby, 49, was arrested Tuesday, Larimer County Sheriff John Fyans said. He appeared in court Wednesday on a first-degree arson charge in connection with the fire, which started on a guest ranch where he worked west of Loveland, about 60 miles north of Denver. His bail was set at $450,000. Wow. I thought this was pretty interesting here. Uh, Hobby also is charged with impersonating a police officer, menacing, and false imprisonment for allegedly stopping travelers on the guest's ranch's property while driving an SUV designed to look like a law enforcement vehicle. Hobby reportedly represented himself as law enforcement, falsely told individuals they were trespassing, and pointed a firearm at them, investigators said. That happened in March 2023, one of the victims said in court on Wednesday. So, kind of interesting stuff. This guy's definitely caused some serious damage, caused some problems. Good to see they caught him, but we'll see if any other stories come out about these other fires that all started within that same time period. Let's go ahead and move on. From biometricupdate.com, September 9th, 2024. Facial recognition back in crime fighting toolkit for Colorado police. I don't know what you think about this, but I definitely wanted to get this information out there. Previous use by Arapahoe County Sheriff stopped when LexisNexis ROC discontinued service. Facial recognition technology is coming back to the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office, this time under a new state law that lays out regulations for the use of facial recognition for policing. The Sheriff's Department previously deployed FRT with biometrics from Colorado's Rank 1 Computing ROC to help identify unknown suspects by running them against a bank of images. News reports from ABC Channel 7 in Denver and other sources do not specify when the previous use occurred, only that the police use stopped after the software provider discontinued the service. The software provider in question was LexisNexis, and the service was its Lumen product. A comprehensive draft accountability report on the deployment specifies that the software leveraged an algorithm supplied by multimodal biometrics and computer vision provider ROC Corporation, namely ROC SDK version 2.21. So some detailed information there. But nonetheless, I thought this was really interesting. I know there's a lot of concern, of course, about license plate readers, about uh, facial recognition systems, about this mass surveillance society that's being created all around us. So, very, very interesting there. This last paragraph I thought was really interesting. The forthcoming redeployment of facial recognition will bring its own challenges. But by now, FRT is old hat for police in Colorado. A 2020 article from the Denver Post notes that the Denver DMV has been fielding requests from law enforcement agencies for FRT searches since at least 2016. So interesting, that maybe the police are looking for somebody or they're pull you over, something like that. I don't know. but nonetheless, run your photo or a picture of your face against booking photos, against driver's license database to try and figure out some more information about who it is. So this is just something that we got to keep focused on, keep an eye on as it continues to roll out across our state. I mean, when you talk about drones, facial recognition, all these cameras everywhere, it's something to be concerned about. It's something to be aware of, and we can't let these politicians make all the rules without citizen input. So, anyways, moving on. From the denverpost.com, unfortunately, another sign of the times. Denver grocery stores are locking up or cordoning off more products, but it depends on the neighborhood. Well, no shocker there. Security measures vary across city as chains ramp up efforts to thwart shoplifters. This is from September 6th, 2024. Let's make that a little bit bigger for you. At a Safeway grocery store in Denver's Five Points neighborhood, customers planning to peruse aisles 2 and 3 must first enter a secure shopping area cordoned off from the rest of the store. Security cameras monitor an extensive list of products stocked on those protected shelves, including batteries, light bulbs, laundry detergent, pregnancy tests, deodorant, candles, medicine, and baby food. Patrons pay at one of the two dedicated checkout counters before being handed receipts and continuing their shopping trips. The anti theft measures at the store, 757 East 20th Avenue, don't surprise some shoppers. They call it Unsafeway for a reason, Alex Haskins told the Denver Post in the parking lot, repeating a common nickname for that location. Different products experience different theft rates depending on store location and other factors. Locking a product is a measure of last resort. Of course, people don't want to do that, but it's unfortunately, as this article continues on, you see security guards, you see things locked up. I mean, is this really the society we want to live in? These criminals can't be allowed to get away with this kind of retail theft or theft of any sort for that matter. And there needs to be, more individuals speaking up and pushing back against this criminal element in our society because it's bad news. We do not want to see, at least I don't want to see, a society that descends into more commonplace crime. So this article is pretty interesting, goes all the way through a lot of different things here about what's going on in some of these Denver stores, King Super, Safeway, of course, pharmacies. It's not news to a lot of you, but unfortunately, it's a bad sign of the times, and it's a trend that needs to be reversed. But it's only going to happen if crime decreases. Let's move on. Wanted to talk one more time here about the packing plant of the meat slaughterhouse in Denver. This is on agropulse.com. Just because this article provided a broader context about actually what's happening with this ban. This is from November 4th, 2024. Lamb producers fear loss of packing plant in Denver vote. Hundreds of thousands of sheep roll through Denver each year, destined for a 60-year-old plant nestled in a part of town teeming with livestock history. The fate of Superior Farms' 500,000 head capacity lamb plant, estimated to account for 15 to 20% of U.S. lamb processing capacity, will be in voters' hands this November as they consider a referendum that would shut down its operations by 2026 and ban any future meatpacking businesses from entering the city and county. This ban would also affect nearly 1,000 growers in the central and western United States who supply Superior Farms. Wow. In 2022, according to the University of Denver, ranchers from Colorado and surrounding states hauled around 300,000 head of sheep to the facility, the last meatpacking plant left in the city. It sits across from the South Platte River near the historic Livestock Exchange Building, once a buzzing market for cattle, sheep, and swine, and the National Western Center, a complex where the annual National Western Stock Show is held. So this little graphic here is one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up. Uh, there you go. A Denver lamb processor's national impact. Approximately 300,000 lambs were slaughtered at Superior Farms Denver plant in 2022, which amounts to 14.4% of all sheep and lambs processed in the U.S. that year. So you can see why this place is being targeted by these anti-human extremists is because, this would be a massive dent in the agriculture industry in the entire country. Absolutely crazy to see that this massive amount of lamb gets processed here in Colorado. Rough stuff. The $800,000 fight over Denver meatpacking. Agriculture groups, meat packer unions, and animal rights activists have poured $848,000 into campaigns for and against a proposed ballot measure that would ban slaughterhouses in both the city and county of Denver. campaign contributions relating to the proposed 2024 Denver slaughterhouse ban. So wow, 200,000 in support of the ban. Superior Farms spending 160,000 of their own money to push back. The American Sheep Industry Association, and on it goes. So very interesting stuff here. It's bad news, people. This has to end. Um, Here's another graphic. As U.S. lamb production falls, imports fill the gap. Less and less lamb is being produced in the U.S. amid a long-term drop in domestic consumption and an uptick in imports of the meat from countries like Australia and New Zealand. So it's not like people are going to stop eating meat if they ban meat processing. It's just going to come from somewhere else except Colorado. I mean, that's what people got to understand. You're hurting Colorado workers, you're hurting Colorado business, you're hurting consumers here in Colorado who are going to pay for more expensive imports. But people are not going to stop eating meat just because you ban the slaughterhouse here in Denver. Absolutely ridiculous, shameful, and let's hope that voters turn down that terrible, terrible measure. Let's move on. From the denvergazette.com, I think this is an explosive story that deserves more attention. Families file lawsuit against Jeffco School District, updated September 5th, 2024. Now, I grew up going to Jefferson County schools, went up there from preschool to high school, but this is absolutely shocking. Three families represented by Alliance Defending Freedom have filed a federal lawsuit alleging that the Jefferson County School District violated parents' fundamental right to make decisions about the upbringing and education of their children. The lawsuit is based on the school district's policy of assigning students to share overnight accommodations with other students who share the student's gender identity, rather than rooming by sex, according to a statement released Thursday by Alliance Defending Freedom. When Joe and Serena Wales allowed their 11-year-old daughter to attend a district-sponsored trip to Philadelphia and Washington, D.C., they were told their daughter would be rooming with three other fifth-grade girls, Alliance Defending Freedom said. It wasn't until their daughter was in her room getting ready for bed on the first night of the trip that she discovered she was to share a bed with a boy who identified as a girl, the legal outfit said. I mean, this is, I don't, regardless of what you think about anything else, the fact that they're in the same, not that they're in the same bedroom, they're in the same bed. I mean, come on, this is absolutely crazy. Parents, not the government, have the right and duty to direct the upbringing and education of their children, and that includes making informed decisions to protect their child's privacy. ADF Senior Counsel Kate Anderson, director of the ADF Center for Parental Rights, said, "This fundamental right is especially vital for parents to protect their children from violations of bodily privacy by exposure to the opposite sex in intimate settings like sleeping arrangements or shower facilities." If Jefferson County Public Schools is going to continue placing students of the opposite sex in the same room on overnight trips, as it confirmed it would, the district must let parents be the ones to make decisions about their children's privacy, Anderson added. I mean, absolutely outrageous. I mean, absolutely shocking. It's not just, I mean, it's like hard to believe. This is what's going on in our schools here in Colorado. Absolutely wild. Hopefully these families get some win out of this, get some victory. Jefferson County Schools should be ashamed of themselves. It's ridiculous. It's hard to even come up with the words how bad this is. Let's move on. From Complete Colorado, page 2. Lakewood voters to decide on eliminating taxpayer protections in November, September 10th, 2024. So we're seeing this all across Colorado this year. It's so many cities and counties are trying to raise taxes, trying to increase this burden on hardworking families here in Colorado. I mean, it's absolutely shocking. We see evictions are at record highs, inflation's high. People can't afford to live here, and these greedy governments are trying to take more and more of our tax money away from us. It's absolutely shameful, and the voters need to reject it. The Lakewood City Council in August referred a measure to the November 5th ballot, asking voters to permanently eliminate revenue limitations in place under the Colorado Taxpayers Bill of Rights, TABOR. Despite some complicated ballot wording, a yes vote on the measure boils down to an end to refunds of taxes overcollected by the city for good starting in 2026. TABOR is a constitutional amendment that, among other things, limits the growth of local government spending to a reasonable annual rate based on inflation and local economic growth. Excess revenue must be returned to taxpayers unless voters give permission to exceed those limits. The Lakewood measure would allow city government to keep and spend revenue that would otherwise be refunded in perpetuity. So this means the government can take as much money as they want from you because they accidentally overcollected too much, then guess what? You don't get it back. They get to keep it. According to Lakewood resident Natalie Menton, the city has paid $65,000 to a political strategy firm in an effort to word the ballot question in an intentionally misleading way. Menton, who is also running for a Jefferson County Commissioner seat, has a long history advocating for taxpayers, having previously led the repeal of the grocery tax in Lakewood, as well as the defeat of two previous attempts by Jefferson County to eliminate Tabor limits. When I say I'm a taxpayers government watchdog, that is true. I have saved taxpayers millions, notes Menton, who questions the true motives of the Lakewood City Council in asking for a permanent end the new limits. They are ignoring Tabor and presenting it to the voters in a fraudulent type of way, and that shows very little respect to the voters, Menton said. What it really does is eliminate the consent of future voters forever. Menton says that the council is also pitting homeowners against renters, claiming the only way they can give a Tabor refund is if homeowners get it and renters don't. Lakewood residents who previously received Tabor rebates in the form of a property tax reduction, as well as a temporarily reduced fee charged to property owners. But according to Menton, the city could also refund overpaid taxes through things such as a temporary sales tax reduction or lower vehicle registration fees. The city could easily give refunds that include all tax-paying Lakewood residents, renters, as well as property owners, but instead they wanted to present inaccurate and misleading information, Menton said, noting that there should be another Tabor rebate coming to Lakewood taxpayers starting in 2025 should voters reject the November ballot measure. So check that out. I mean, it should be criminal what these politicians, these bureaucrats, these little government employees are trying to do. Take more of our hard-earned tax money, make life more difficult for us, and grow the size of government. Of course, their hunger never ends. Let's move on. From realveil.com. Don't usually quote a lot from Real Veil, but nonetheless, this is an important piece here. Opinion piece from Quentin Young. Dems darken 50 years of sunshine with legislative supermajority maneuvers. So something we talked about before, but definitely need to bring up again. August 23rd, 2024. What's interesting, Quentin Young, probably I agree with him on almost nothing. This guy works for Colorado Newsline, definitely a big government type. Don't really like a lot of his articles, but nonetheless, the fact that somebody like him is calling out our governor, calling out our Democratic legislature, I think that really is important. Democrats at the Colorado legislature are increasingly hostile to open government, and they have learned that they will pay little or no price for drawing a curtain around their work. But there is a cost paid by the people. As elected officials block their view of lawmaking, the people's value as constituents drops. Public servants in America are supposed to be accountable to the people, but if the people can't see what their government representatives are doing, they have no way to exercise meaningful accountability. This principle is clearly illustrated as the legislature prepares to meet next week for a special session on property taxes. It's a little bit dated there, but nonetheless. During the short session, lawmakers will consider tax cut legislation that was proposed in secret and discussed in the shadows, and it will be debated with the most limited public involvement possible, even though property tax policy affects every resident of the state. Coloradans might disagree on property tax cuts, but they should be united in demanding transparency. Homeowners in recent years have seen their taxes increase with rising property values. In May, lawmakers addressed the problem by passing bipartisan legislation that curbed taxes while protecting local districts. But okay, move on from there. You can see some of the stuff I don't necessarily agree with there. But nonetheless, disdain for transparency peaked when Democrats from the House and Senate met to discuss the deal. They held virtual meetings in secret. Newsline requested recordings of the meetings, but the request was denied. This behavior appears especially contemptuous of Colorado residents in light of how Democrats earlier this year voided for themselves open meeting rules that Colorado voters had put in place. So you can read the rest of the article if you'd like, but nonetheless, the fact that our state government is trying to hide what they're doing from the voters, they think they're justified in not being open with the public. It's bad news for sure, and it's good to see even somebody like Quentin Young calling them out. Let's move on. Talked about this previously as well, but hey, this is something that needs to be kept at the top of people's radar. I mean, this kind of shows you the stakes of this November election as well, because whoever wins in November, that's going to be down at the state legislature in January, and they're going to be deciding stuff like this. So, be warned, people. September 4th, 2024. From the Steamboat Pilot in Today, mountain towns in Colorado are full of vacant trophy homes and short-term rentals. Some Western Slope town councils want permission to tax them. Just this idea that they're calling them trophy homes as a way to like try and, get people to be, oh, trophy home, this and that. It's like, come on, people. Let's see here. As Colorado lawmakers debate over how to confront rapidly increasing housing costs, more than a dozen city and town councils on the Western Slope have voted to support allowing local taxes on vacant homes and short term rentals. The concepts, pitched by the Colorado Association of Ski Towns, or CAST, so you can see who that's behind it. That's who's behind it is CAST, would have to be passed by the Colorado legislature and approved by local voters before they could take effect anywhere. Absolutely, absolutely crazy. They also want to impose real estate transfer fees. I mean, then they go into talk a little bit here about property taxes. Here we go. Town or city councils in Avon, Basalt, Breckenridge, Crested Butte, Estes Park, Frisco, Glenwood Springs, Minturn, Mountain Village, Ouray, Silverthorne, Steamboat Springs, and Winter Park have all voted to support the latest concepts proposed by CAST. I wonder what the voters say there. An empty home tax could be either in the form of an excise tax based on the home's square footage or a flat amount per home, or part of property taxes based on the home's value. Local governments would also be able to define whether things like secondary homes or short term rentals are included in the empty homes. Residential vacancy rates are above 40% in some Colorado mountain towns. I mean, how utterly and utterly ridiculous is this? I mean, what's this going to lead to? They're going to ask you on your taxes, they're going to say, hey, you have to tell us how often you rent your house. And if we catch you lying, you're going to go to jail. We're going to take your house from you. I mean, this is absolutely and utterly ridiculous. Laws like this would have incentivized government spying on the citizens, keeping track of what's going on, and if, who's staying at these houses, how long they're staying at these houses. I mean, it's absurd, it's insane, and it just shows the level of involvement that people need to have in your local government. These are local governments, people, that are trying to push these ridiculous rules. And get involved in the legislature, get involved in your local government because they're coming after your house because you're not in there enough. I mean, absolutely crazy. Let's go ahead and move on. The Larimer Ledger. Colorado ballot measures again pit front range voters against rural Colorado. Colorado ballot measures again pit front range voters against rural Colorado. Banning lion hunting, closing a slaughterhouse would only add to the disastrous wolf reintroduction. This is a really important article here from Krista Kafer, columnist for the Denver Post. That's a great picture, isn't it? Tell me you don't like rural Coloradans without telling me. That's what two initiatives will ask the state's urban suburban majority to do this November. Tell rural folks they're not welcome in their own state, that their ways are passe, particularly ranching and hunting. Initiative 91 would outlaw the hunting of bobcats and mountain lions. The initiative is both unnecessary and a slap in the face to rural populations who live with these predators and take part in their management through hunting. These animals are plentiful and well managed by Colorado Parks and Wildlife in partnership with hunters, many of whom hail from the rural western slope. Contrary to advocates' assertions, Colorado law already prohibits hunting mountain lions for sport. The meat must be harvested for consumption. Initiative 91 not only rejects science-based welfare management, wildlife management, is a deliberate affront to the rural way of life, which for many includes hunting and fishing. So, I mean, check this out. It's absolutely ridiculous. She does a great job of really explaining the problems. Talks about that slaughterhouse ban, of course, that keeps coming up in the news. But the idea is, these people are going after the rural lifestyle, and that's a trend we're seeing over years, right? We see these urban people trying to basically manage these rural societies, and because they have more people in these urban areas, they can pass bad laws that affect people who are underrepresented in our government. So check that out. But moving on. Wanted to bring this up from Denver 7 because, there's all this talk right now about Aurora, about the gang violence. Of course, you hear it about Denver all the time as well. But nonetheless, there's this bigger problem we're seeing. As we talked about earlier, with supermarkets having to close up and lock up all their stuff, and we see this people in East Colfax asking for help. They need to take action. East Colfax businesses buried between trash, crime, plead for more help from police. So, hopefully with all this extra emphasis on Aurora and this eastern part of the Denver metro area with this gang issue and this immigration problem, hopefully, people see that this is part of a broader issue all across Denver. This is from August 30th, 2024. Excessive trash and open drug and alcohol use are just a few of the problems that have become part of daily life on the sidewalks outside East Colfax businesses. Cuttin' Up Beauty Academy is located at the intersection of East Colfax and Ulster Street in Denver. Karen Hall started the Beauty Academy in 1996. Cuttin' Up offers cosmetology, barbering, courses for students preparing to get their license. Today, Cuttin' Up is a family business. Hall's daughter, Chanel Simmons, serves as the director. Simmons told Denver 7 that issues with the unhoused, drug use, and trash collecting on the streets are progressively getting worse. She said she usually starts her day by picking up trash from around her building and asking anyone sleeping outside of the building to leave. She reports what's happening on East Colfax to Denver police, but is growing exhausted with the lack of change. I always fear for their safety, especially with a lot of us being women, a lot of customers being seniors or even children. If they're looking at the environment around another school and then they're looking at the environment around ours, I feel like it puts us in the back seat, said Simmons. Right? I mean, if you don't necessarily want to be around a lot of this trash and crime and problems. Businesses we spoke with agreed that the 2020 relocation of a covered RTD bus stop is exacerbating the issue. The bus stop is located in front of Surihi's Kitchen, a new restaurant on East Colfax serving authentic Mexican food. Customers sitting next to the window will have a view of the bus stop. I've complained. I filed several complaints to both the RTD and the police department. They haven't done much. They do come and do some patrolling, but at this point they need to take another action, said owner Jesus Pasion. Christian Zamora is the manager at Chelate, which has been on East Colfax for 15 years. Over the years, they changed the hours they operate to close the restaurant earlier. They also installed a gate for more separation from the sidewalk. They would harass my customers to the point where my customers did not even want to come in. They didn't want to even come eat our food here just because they were scared of the things that could happen to them just from walking from their car to our doors, said Zamora. There's a picture there. So I mean, there you go. I mean, it's major issue, and people really need to wake up and see what's going on. And there needs to be some sort of change because things are not going to get better unless something changes, right? So let's move on here. Oh, wanted to bring this story up, of course, very controversial story here from New York Post. New York Post has been reporting on a lot of the Colorado stories recently here, but nonetheless, this one has some nationwide implications. I think that's why there's that coverage. Fury at DA after illegal migrant truck driver who killed Colorado man faces just 1 year in prison. This is from August 29th, 2024. The widow, sorry about that small text there. Let's see if I can make it a little bit bigger. The widow of a Colorado man killed by an illegal immigrant trucker is outraged as he faces just a year in prison after being charged with and pleading guilty to mere minor traffic violations. I'm mad that I'm not going to get justice for my husband, devastated widow Deanne Miller told 9 News. Mad because the most this man can get is a year for murdering my husband because the DA refused to charge him with more. I lost the man I've been with since I was 17. I mean, it's absolutely tragic. Her husband, 64-year-old Scott Miller, was killed in June when a semi driver driven by 47-year-old Ignacio Cruz Mendoza veered out of control and dumped a load of steel and iron rods across Highway 285. The metal landed on top of Miller's pickup truck, crushing and killing him on the scene. Four other vehicles were also crushed, and one driver was left with serious injuries. But Cruz Mendoza, a Mexican living in the U.S. illegally, was only charged by the Jefferson County District Attorney with a minor traffic misdemeanors, careless driving resulting in a death and careless driving resulting in injury. After pleading guilty in July, he faces just a year in prison and some fines at his sentencing Friday. Miller is baffled by the charges, especially since Cruz Mendoza never should have been in the country to begin with. He should not have been behind the wheel of that truck, and he knew that, and he chose to do this, she said. Mendoza has been removed from the country or left voluntarily at least 16 times since 2002, according to the Denver Post. He also did not have a valid operator's license at the time of the wreck. There's the man who died. Wow. So there you go. I mean, it's rough. This line here at the bottom, just the Jefferson County DA did not respond to the Post's request for comment. No surprise there, right? Take a look at who the Jefferson County DA is. I posted this just right after this story broke back at the end of August because I wanted a little bit more information about who this DA was. So here's my post on X back on August 31st, 7,000 views. So definitely people are interested in it. The article we just talked about. Then I kind of tried to dig in a little bit here. So who is the DA? Who is the DA in Jefferson County who let this guy off with just a year? Her name is Alexis King. Alexis King has been in the district attorney's office, different ones across Colorado here. Uh, that's a picture of her. What I thought was interesting is she was supported by Blue Flower Action in her 2020 campaign. And here are some of the big donors to Blue Flower. So, Blue Flower is a totally more left wing, progressive, uh, big government authoritarian type of political committee. And, you can see who funds it is NEA Advocacy. That's the teachers' unions, Education Reform Now, Better Schools, Earthworks, Progressive Governance. Green Advocacy, Merle Chambers. I mean, a lot of these names that always pop up when it comes to progressive or left wing causes, especially here in Colorado. So that's who funded this DA's campaign, just to give you an idea. Of course, no surprise here, I guess, but one of the big donors, $10,000 to Blue Flower Action, the same organization that helped this lady get elected to her DA position, is Jennifer Soros. No, I don't want to be trying to be inflammatory here or really go over the top, but nonetheless, there's been this push by the Soros team to really try and influence DA elections, and they have so here in Colorado. So we're looking at Lindsay Doherty this year for state legislature and Rhonda Fields. Those are some of the big checks that Blue Flower Action is supporting, paying some money to support. And what's interesting too, the Soros family hasn't donated directly to a Colorado candidate since 2022. But looking at that DA, Alexis King, Blue Flower Action, she was also supported by ACLU of Colorado, this Justice for Action, Colorado Working Families Party. So these are the people who helped get Alexis King elected for office, in addition to the Soros-linked Action Fund. And she's the one who decided that this guy who is in the country illegally, shouldn't be driving a truck, killed somebody, is only going to spend 1 year or possibly less in jail. So I just wanted to kind of provide that bigger picture to what was going on. It's absolutely a tragic story. But of course, what makes it even more tragic is the fact that there's no justice for this family. Let's move on. Last thing I'd like to talk about this week is an event here, Liberty on the Rocks in Denver. Definitely the best pro liberty meetup in Denver area. The immigration situation with Eliseo Gonzalez of the Libertarian Party. You definitely want to check this out. Are you interested in learning more about immigration and how it affects your community? Eliseo Gonzalez, Mexican American activist, LPCO vice chair, and candidate for Arapahoe County Commissioner, will discuss current trends in immigration policy, the impact on communities, and the human stories behind the statistics. So it should be very interesting. Eliseo's extremely pro-liberty activist. Very curious as to what he has to say. I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot. That's this Wednesday, September 18th at 6 p.m. Definitely check that out down at the Independence Institute down in Denver. Free parking, free event. Hope you can make it. It'd be great. It'd be great if you came. If you come, please say hi. But wonderful. Appreciate you guys joining me this week. A lot in the news. We'll continue with these updates throughout the year, and we'll see what else happens. So thank you very much and take care.